I'm Lexi, and I do a ton of crafting. I have found that I learn best by watching a ton of tutorials on YouTube, so I thought I would just start making my own, and hopefully I will be able to help out others who learn the same way I do. I am currently extremely passionate about bookbinding. It combines two of my absolute favorite things in the world, crafting and books, so how could I not be obsessed? So for now, my videos will center around making my own books. I would love to be able to find a tribe of like-minded people, so if you love crafting and books, congratulations, we are now best friends. So hit that subscribe button. Please be patient with me as this is my first video, so I'm going to be awkward and nervous until I get my bearings. So I think I want to start off the bookbinding with the supplies. When I can, I will link what I have gotten off Amazon in the description below. So give me a second to gather it all. Okay, so I think I've got the basics. Obviously, as we go, I'm going to be including things such as trimming edges. So we're turning it from the deckled edges, which is uneven edges, to the smooth. Ignore the spot on there. I don't know why it does that. I have a brand new cutter and it leaves a weird spot. But either way, it turns the uneven edges into the smooth edges of a book. I'm also going to talk about things such as overlays. Which those also require different materials, but those are not necessary. So to begin, the main thing you're going to need at first is going to be your bone folder. I am pretty sure this one is made out of plastic. Actually, I'm pretty sure most of them nowadays are made out of plastic instead of bone, but this is used to fold your pages, and it helps give them a nice crisp fold, and we'll also use it for other things as well. Obviously, you're going to need a good pair of scissors. Believe it or not, I found this pair at the Dollar Tree, and it is so sharp that it cuts through fabric like butter. So you should go out and get you a couple pair. It really impressed me. This is not necessary, but I found that I use it a lot. It's going to be my rotary cutter. We are going to need mull, which we'll get to what it's used for later. And I'm pretty sure I've said it already, but I will link what I can of what I have bought from Amazon into the description below so that you can check out the things if you would like to buy the same stuff. This is PVA glue. It is a neutral pH, and it is going to dry fast, clear, and it will also allow bending, so it'll dry flexible. My PVA glue, I have found that it is best kept in a container such as this, which I got from the Dollar Tree. Make sure it is airtight, so it has that seal. around the edges. Sorry about the dog hair. So I found that it's easier to use this because I can dip my glue brush into it instead of having to pick up the bottle and dump it constantly over and over. You're going to need book cloth. You can either buy it pre-made or you can make your own. I will include a video later on of how to make your own book cloth, but there are many tutorials on YouTube already about that. You are also going to need headbands. These are headbands. I'm pretty sure I paid like $6 for them, and there's so many in them, I'll never have to buy another pack, I'm pretty sure, unless I didn't like the colors that were left to me. Plus, you can make your own, which we can get to in a later episode, but for now, pre-made headbands are extremely cheap. I like the silicone makeup brushes. Now this one did have a curved edge and I cut it down to make it straight. I like using this because, like I said, I can dip it into my glue and then spread it on my book board and make it very even. Another thing I use is this glue brush, and I'm pretty sure the glue brush came in the next thing I will talk about. So I bought a pack, I think it was like $17, $18 on Amazon, and it came with this really nice carrying case, but it also had things that we need, such as a bunch of, let's see if you can see in there, a bunch of different waxed linen thread. So waxed linen thread is best used because the wax makes it so that when you bring it, or you tear off a really long string, it's not going to tangle up as you're sewing your signatures. It also comes with, obviously, a thimble and needle threaders, a tiny pair of scissors. I have no idea how good they are. I've never used them. It came with 2 awls, which is another necessity that you definitely need. This is going to punch holes in your signatures so that you can sew them all together. And it came with your cotton ribbon. Oh, and it also, I'm pretty sure it came with the bone folder as well. So I thought that was a pretty good deal for only $17, $18 instead of having to buy them all separately and paying more. Plus it came with a really nice carrying case. Oh, and it came with the needles. And you're definitely going to want a curved needle. Trust me. The kit also came with the straight needles, which I've always used straight needles to sew everything, but when I tried it, it was absolutely terrible compared to the curved tapestry needles that came with the set. So you've heard about the awl. Next, I'm going to show you a couple things that I've made myself from my 3D printer. You can buy them pre-made on Amazon or even Etsy, or you can rig up little makeshift ones by yourself or whatever you need. So this is called a now I'm going to lose the word, a punching cradle, I'm pretty sure. What it does is we're going to use this as an example. You're going to open your signatures to the middle, lay it in there, make sure it's straight to the top. and you're going to punch your sewing holes. In your signature. And that way, when you've got all of them punched, all of your holes should line up straight so that when you sew your signatures together, it's all going to be even. So this punching cradle I downloaded from the STL from Thingiverse and printed it off, and I just used a marker and made marks on where I want to put my sew my signatures together with. This is a spacer that's going to go it's the hinge spacer. So later on, when we get to building the case for the book, which is the cover, I'll show you how this is used. And this also is for the case. It's going to make it so you can put it on the corner of your fabric. Use that as a guide as to where to cut the corners so that when you fold your fabric over, the corners look really nice and crisp. So I'm pretty sure that is it for the supplies, at least the basic supplies. If I am missing something, I'm sure I will run into it later. But for now, we're going to work on first steps. So the first thing you're going to need is you are going to need your book or your fan fiction printed out and made into signatures. I will link the website below where I go to that turns my PDF file and it turns it into signatures for me. This is just a book that I'm doing for myself. I want to have them all custom made with fabric covers and golden edges and custom, oh Lord, I've made a mess, and custom end pages and everything. So you're going to need to have your book printed or fan fiction printed out into your signatures. So, oh, I do know something else that you need that I forgot. You're going to need a book press. Now, it's really easy to make your own, and I suggest you make your own because it's going to end up being cheaper. You're going to need 2 pieces of wood. Make sure they're straight and hard. They're not going to bend. And 4 carriage bolts and wing nuts. I bought this one from Amazon. I will link it below in case you would like to buy it yourself. But I wish I made my own, and I will be making another one very soon. So, anyways, when I fold my signatures, I use this as a guide. Obviously, that's not what it's intended for, but I'll show you why I use it as a guide. This is going to be to press our signatures and make sure they're all nice and tight. But I'm going to put this off to the side. And we're going to start folding. Oh, I need to make more room. Okay. So I make sure all the pages are even, and then I press it up against the hard surface of my press and bend. That way I know that I'm getting them as even as possible. And then I'm going to start in the middle and work out. And there's my first signature. So when I fold the signature, I need to make sure I am folding when both the page numbers at the bottom are consecutive. That means that's going to be the middle page. So then I'm going to press this to the side and grab the next one. Make sure that the numbers are consecutive. Fold it. And now what I'm going to do is, because I have this one set here, that one is 457. I want to make sure the last page on this signature is 456, because it's going to go straight on top of that, and I'm going to keep them in order. I try to keep them in order when printing them out so that I shouldn't have any issues, but sometimes things happen that you would not expect. So we're going to continue folding our signatures until we're all done. If I can, I will make this part fast forward so that you do not have to sit and wait in real time for me to get this part done. Okay, so these are all done, and as you just saw with the signatures, it is also really handy to have a bunch of large paper clips on hand to keep your signatures separated. And I just got those at the Dollar Tree as well. So now, see this where all the edges are uneven? That is what deckled edges means. So for now that I know that all of my signatures are in order, I am going to take a Sharpie and make a diagonal line across the spine. And what that does is, in case something happens, and say this signature got out of order, I can look and I can see that dot and say, oh, something is wrong. And I can see exactly where it goes. Let me make sure. No, I'm paranoid. Yes. That is exactly where it goes. So we are going to take this and we are going to put it in our book press. I did see a hint just yesterday that if we take half the pages and turn them, it'll press better. So we're going to try that. I don't think it's really going to make that big of a difference, but we're going to try it. So I'm going to put as much pressure on this as I can. Make sure it is nice and tight. and kind of keep an eye. I don't know if you can see it, but keep an eye on your corners and make sure they are getting pressed really well. So if you have to make it tighter, you know, because you want it to be as tight as possible. And because I buy copy paper from Walmart in bulk instead of the bookbinding short grain paper from suppliers like church paper, I just don't have the money to spend on a ton of paper that costs 5 times as much as copy paper does. But if you press it well enough and glue it good enough, then other than the color, there's not really much of a difference. So these are all pressed really well. And I'm going to put that off to the side. And we're going to leave that at least 4 hours. I like to leave it overnight, just because I know it's gotten a really good press overnight. But I will see you back in 4 hours when this is done pressing. Okay, so while we wait on the text block or the signatures to press, it's only been about 2 hours. I want to move on to something that we can do in the meantime, which is I can print out my overlays. I have an Epson EcoTank 2803. I like the EcoTank because the ink is insanely cheap. Like, I can get 4 things of black for $12, and it works just perfectly. So I have seen people use vellum for their overlays. However, I could not get that to work because with vellum you have to use the lowest print settings possible so that it doesn't use much ink, because until the ink dries it will smear very, very badly, and I have no luck with it. So this is what I use. I got it on Amazon. I will link it in the description below. I use the transparent paper for inkjet printer. Now when I print it, there will be lines. I'll show them to you. They're not extremely noticeable, especially once the picture is printed and put into the book. However, they are there. I wonder if it would be different if I used my laser printer, and the ones I have for my laser printer to print these pictures. However, toner is a bit more expensive than the EcoTank ink, so I only use black ink in my toner, or in my laser printer. So, 1 second. Okay, so these are extremely see-through, so your printer isn't going to register that there is paper there. So you want to pay attention to the sticker that says printed side to know what side to go up. And you want a piece of cardstock and some sticky tape. You're going to pull a piece out of here, keeping the printed side up. Put it onto your cardstock. You want to keep them completely even, and you want to grab just a tiny bit of tape. just like that. I don't even know if you can see how much, but just a tiny bit. And we're going to put 2 on the bottom. Well, we'll turn it and make it the top. But remember, you want to keep the film right over the paper so that it's not any different. Otherwise, it's going to be too big for your printer. You want 2 pieces of tape on the side that feeds into the printer. Otherwise, the printer will grab onto it and it'll like mess up. I don't know how to explain it. And I don't want to do it and make the mess that it does just to show you. So then we're going to put 1 on the top, just in the middle. And then I'm going to do 1 on each side. Now, if anyone has any tricks to get your printer to register that it has paper in it without taping it to cardstock, I would really, really, really appreciate you letting me know. So we're going to put that into our printer. And I use Inkscape, but a lot of people use Canva. Like, I use Canva for a lot of things, but just for printing pictures, I use Inkscape because I can size my picture to the exact size that I want, which I have it 5.25 by 8.4, which is just a tad bit smaller than each page of my book. And I did that on purpose. Normally I make it 5.5 by 8.5. However, since I've gotten my paper cutter that cuts all the book edges, it has been cutting too far into the picture, and I don't want to lose any of the details, or especially the words. So I'm going to print this, and I want to set it up on the absolute highest quality settings as I can. And let it print. And while that is printing, I have 2 pictures to print off for this book. I'm going to bring my other piece of cardstock over and do the same thing. Tape this up to have it ready. I found because it takes so much time doing the taping that I tape one while another is printing, and it just does not frustrate me quite as much. And remember, when you feed this into your printer, the part that has 2 pieces of tape you want to put in to feed first. I keep a lot of sticky tape on hand just for this reason, because I tape a lot of acetate sheets. So if you did not know, the Dollar Tree has 2 2 packs of the sticky tape for only $1.25, and it's Scotch brand, so it's pretty good. I am the kind of person that I will use the Dollar Tree as much as possible. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, but it's off. I made it not quite right, so it's going to be too wide. So I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm just going to slit it and line it up again. You just got to make sure it is lined up with that cardstock as much as possible. And also make sure it's flat and not bowed, because I've done that too, which is why I tend to put the sides on upside down. So just like that. Just in time, the other one's right about to come out. Put that down in there. Pull this out. It does not look good right now, but give me a second. Now I want to put, I have to get my second image. File, print. Highest settings. Okay, we started that one printing. Oh, it might give me problems. It just pulled that in really badly. So I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to just slide through that tape on the sides. Eventually you'll have to get a new piece of cardstock to use because the tape does build up after so many. Like you can see, it's getting pretty built up on the edges here. So now we've got our picture. This is where having a rotary cutter comes in really handy. I'm going to use my cutting mat to line this up, and I want to cut directly on the line. I also want to leave, I'm trying something new. Normally I will put it on the page that it is and just use a very thin piece of double-sided tape, but I'm going to leave a good portion of this part of the acetate sheet and I'm going to try something new. So we're going to line this up. And cut it. And they are going to be trimmed down just a tiny bit when I trim the edges of the book, but I don't know if you can see it, but there's just a spot right there at the top where it's bent, and that's because Amazon bent my package while they sent it, and that kind of sucked. Just be very careful with the rotary cutter too, because they are extremely sharp. Okay, so I'm going to leave about, I would say, half an inch should be good. I might need even a little bit less, but we're going to start with half an inch. Alright. So here's this one. And when we get to that part, I'll show you why I'm wanting that half-inch strip. So we're going to do that to our second. So on this one, you can kind of see what I mean by the lines from the wheels of the printer. But unless you're in the right light, usually you cannot see it. This one you might be able to, so we'll have to figure something out. We might have to reprint this one or get toner for the laser printer and see if that does any better. All it is the ink is wet for just that second while it goes through, and the rollers for the printer will just go right over top of that ink. So line it up. I just messed that up. And a half-inch on this side. which will probably get trimmed down a little more. I don't know yet. But my plan is for this to kind of bend that right at the edge so that I can tape it onto the other side of the signature, and hopefully that will make it even more streamlined than it is already. So let's see. Kind of start making that seam. And I might have even turned it the wrong way. Actually I do have an idea because I know where it's going. So anyways, I'm going to finish this up and I will be back when the signatures are done pressing, and we will add these in and start sewing. Okay, so we're back and our book has finished pressing. It's good enough. It's going to get pressed again, so we don't have to worry too much about it, but it has done pretty good. It's pretty flat for the most part. So with our overlays, I was just playing around with it. Oh, this is just a tatty to let me know what book it is real quick. I had to, where I had given half a inch and folded it at that half an inch, I had to change it and fold it halfway through, so at a quarter of an inch, leaving a quarter of an inch open, and I will show you why and kind of what my plan is to do with it. This is the first time I'm doing it this way, so if it fails, you will be right there to see it fail with me. So I want the very first overlay, which is the actual cover of the book that I'm doing for myself, to be on the first page in front of the words, you know, the same words about the book. So I'm going to kind of loop it over this signature in the middle, kind of like that. And so we've got a overhang on the other side. And so this is going to kind of get closed up when we glue the book spine together. So I'm not worried about this. So we're going to put this first page off to the side real quick. And I'm going to take my double-sided tape. Let's see. I have to measure right. Get a length of it. Put this off to the side real quick. Grab my X-Acto knife. And I'm going to cut this in half. Because this one is just a tiny bit too thick, and I am not going to buy new tape when I have a ton of this size, so I can just cut it in half. It's not an issue. Put that off to the side. And we're going to put it right up to the edge. I try to keep the flat piece next to the edge. Right up to the edge. Right in the middle. Good enough, it's not perfect, but I really don't care. And so we're going to peel up the paper and toss that. And now we're putting this back. Be careful not to tape it into the wrong spot. Oh, I didn't think about this ahead of time. It's pretty good. Gonna bend that over the signature and glue it down. Well, I did horribly up here. Let me see. I don't know if it's fixable. Be more careful than I was. Because I did horribly, apparently, on the whole thing. I have a better idea for the next one. So, that one's good enough. It looks really bad right now, but once we get it all put together, the spine is sewn and glued, it should be just a page just like any other. So the next page is where I want, because it says this is your map, so we're going to put this on this one. So I'm going to try this a different way this time. And I'm just going to take the page that I'm gluing it to. And I bet that'll make it a lot easier to get it glued just right. So, as we did before, I'm going to take our tape, put it right up the edge. Sometimes I have problems peeling that paper off. Peel the paper off. And line it up. It's gonna that side. Get it all the way into that crease and fold it over. And then we're going to put this back together. That's still probably going to cut off more than I wanted it to, but less than it was. So we put our signature back together. Page 1, page 2, so on and so forth. So now, if you are not doing overlays, now you're going to want your piercing cradle or your punching cradle. And you're going to want to find the middle of your signature. Put it in here. Make sure it is all the way up at the top. And I always make my marks facing me, so they're on the opposite side of me, so that I know every punch should be in the exact same spot on every signature. And then I'm going to go through and put a hole in every one of those with a mark on it. And I know that I want 8 spaces because I'm going to go in that one, out this, and in this, and that's going to be a French link. Out this one and in this one, and that middle is going to be a French link. Out this one and in this one, this middle is going to be a French link, and then out this one so that I can start on the next one. I really hope that makes sense because I have zero idea how to explain it better, but it'll be easier if you like draw on a piece of paper. So here's the spine of your book, and you want 3 French links. So you're going to need a hole on either side of those. And then I need a hole to go in and a hole to come out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That leaves 8 marks. Hopefully that explained it better than me talking because I'm not very great. So as you can see, all of our holes are punched. And we're going to put this off to the side. And I've got trash everywhere. And I'm going to do this on every signature. And I will be back. I'm going to fast forward while I do this. Okay, so now that all of our signatures have holes in them, we're going to set the punching turtle away, grab them all, line them up. It looks like this one's bigger. It will not be once everything gets trimmed down, but make sure all the lines are lined up. And then I always turn it over, and you'll see why in a minute, because I want to start on the last page, or the last signature. And I'm going to take a few arm lengths, or two, I'm going to take 2 arm lengths of my waxed linen thread. And my needle. Okay, we're going to thread the needle. Buying pre-waxed thread is not as good as getting linen thread and waxing it yourself, because they put too much on. So when you go to pull your string, you'll see the wax start to come off. It's okay. You're going to want it close to even, but not. And I'm going to start on the very last signature. I'm going to go in, and I'm going to pull it until there's about 2 inches out. And then I'm going to go in and out the rest of the signature. So the first 3 are all going to be different, and then from 3 on, it'll all be the same until you finish. So I will guide you through the first 3, and then I'll fast forward through the rest, because trust me, you do not want to sit and watch me in real time. If I sit closer to this table, it'll probably help me getting in the camera shot. Oops. Okay. So when you get to the first row, you're going to want to make sure everything's tight. So you're going to pull from each side, and you're going to pull out, because if you were to pull in, it's going to drag the thread through each of these and just break it. So you're going to pull out from each other. And then we're going to smash it down. And we're going to take the next signature and flip it over. Make sure when you're doing it, they're all going one way, and you start from the back, because otherwise it'll all go downhill. So just like the first one, we're going to do it in reverse, and we're going to go in that one. And see, this is why the curved thread is so much easier, because it takes a second for you to pull it through the rest of that hole, and it just gives you something to grab onto. So when we come out this one, here's where it's going to start changing. I don't worry about it being tight at this moment. I will show you how to tighten it. We're going to go under. I should have done this in black thread so you can see. I'm going to go under this thread and then through my hole so that it kind of links it together. And I'm going to do that for each of these outside threads. Okay. So you see kind of how they're linked together, but they're all loose. So we already tightened our first row. What we're going to do is we're going to open this top signature and we're going to pull. We're going to pull each one of them up and over until you get to the last one, and then you're going to pull out the front. So when you fold it up, it should be pretty tight together. And so after the second signature, we're going to take these two threads and tie them together. I just bent my pages. So now we're going to start the third one. So from 3 and on, it's all going to be the same as you go through the signatures. We're going to do like we did, and we're going to go in through the first, and then I grab them all together, out through the second, now when you go through the next one, you're gonna go through the, like there's two sides obviously, you can either go on this side or this side. You're gonna go through the side closest to the hole that you are going to go in. So a trick I use is I put my needle into the middle and just, oh, don't get too, just flip up and it'll get attached to the right end. So put my needle in the middle and flip up. It makes my hand cramp really bad. remember, we don't worry about how tight it is until we get to the end of the signature. So, needle in the middle and flip it up. Okay. So we're going to hold it down and tighten from that side because that's the way we stitched. Hold it down, they should be all tight together. And so this is where it kind of changes. We don't have anything to tie it to from down here like we did the last signature. So we're going to take our needle and we're going to go under the one underneath. Let's hope this. And it's going to create that loop. And you're going to go back through and it's going to create this kind of S-ish situation. And we're going to pull it tight and that knots it. And so you're going to do that on every single, at the end of every single signature as we get to the end. So all of the rest of them follow what happened during the third signature. And I'm going to fast forward this and I'll be back with you as soon as it finishes. Okay, we're starting on our last signature. This one's going to be just a tad bit harder because I've got those two acetate sheets inside. But it shouldn't be too bad since I had already poked the holes. Every now and then, if you can't get your needle to go straight through, I go from the front and poke holes in them again, just to make sure they're open wide. That normally helps. But of course, I'm still going to have issues. Well, now I've made it so I can't even get it through the front. There we go. And the last one, let's tighten them up. Really good. Now to tie it off, what I normally do is do the normal tie, and then I'm going to keep going down a few. Just so that there's a few knots in there. And we're going to snip, snip. It's not quite as pretty as normal because of the way I did the acetate. Depending on how this dries with the glue, I might go back to attaching them how I was, but I'm at least trying. So we're going to need our press again. And we're going to slide our text block in there. All the way in until just about 2, maybe 3 millimeters. 2, maybe 3 millimeters is sticking out. So that we can apply the glue. You want it as straight as possible. And you want it pressed as tight as possible. Oh no. Well, I broke my book press. But it'll be fine. We've got 3 of the 4. I would not recommend this press to anyone. It just does not get tight enough, and apparently it is not sturdy either. Now I'm afraid to tighten it. So now we're going to get both our silicone brush and our glue brush, and we need a piece of mull. Remember, mull is that fabric. I wouldn't even call it a fabric, I'd call it just like a woven. Okay. Oh, I hit the table, I'm so sorry. So we're going to open our glue. And I'm going to start with the glue brush. I don't know if I want to use this one. I'm probably going to use this one instead. I'm going to get a decent amount on there. Make sure it's not dripping. And we're going to start to slather it on. Make sure you are getting every signature really well. Don't worry about it being too tall to get everything on, because this is all we can buy at the sideboard. And use sometimes. Use the silicone brush to really get in between those grids. And then we're going to add the mull and add another layer of glue, just making sure that there is glue filling every fiber of that mull. Get this glue in the jar. And for right now, we're done. We're going to allow this to dry. It dries pretty quickly, but I do want to let it dry for about 4 hours, and then I might add another little layer of glue on top of it, and then I will let that dry overnight, just because I want all these little grooves to be completely full of glue. So next week we will continue on, and I will show you how I make my custom end papers, and we're going to add those, and we're going to start making the hardcover for the books. So if you have stuck with me this far, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Please hit the like and subscribe, or share with anyone that you think would enjoy learning how to make their own books. And I will see you next week.